Again, I want to be clear. I think there is a place for that. But I also think that just as people can make an argument that that works, I also don't want people to forget that abstinence works too. And that people can and do learn how to not use. Lose the desire to use and find a new way to live. And, So we're going to take a few pictures in between the breaks. We've got the process streamlined a lot, as you can probably tell from this year to last year. So all the presentations, we don't have a lot of time. I was actually just killing a little time to get some of the stragglers a chance to get back in so everybody can get to experience Richard Beale. But that's enough for me. During the in between the sessions, we're going to do a couple of little picture things, and then at the end of it, at the last session, before the last session, you're going to get some evaluations that you'll fill out and return to us. And when you return the evaluations, we will give you your certificate of hours for today's session. And Stephen explained to you what you need to do if you decide you want to pursue the certification. So you have that all clear. Okay, good. All right, so without any further, yes.
What about yesterday's session?
The certificate for today will include yesterday. It'll be certificate for the symposium. So it'll be for those total number of hours. So it'll be that way. So Richard, I'll tell you about Richard Beale, just a little bit about Richard. Richard is a very close friend and a very close colleague of mine. And we've known each other for, I don't know, 25 years at least. Yeah, at least. And Richard, as some of you have seen, he just got his book published, Recovering from the Game, and some of you have already purchased that, but a lot of you are already familiar with that notion, that idea, and we talked about that this morning. But Richard's a dynamic speaker, both in recovery and in his professional life. Dynamic speaker. So you won't fall asleep on Richard Beale. I promise you that. He's something to look at, and he's something to hear. I mean, really, he's a powerful man. He was powerful out there. He was powerful back in the day, and he's powerful here. A friend of mine says it was never our aim, it was our target. And so Richard has made this recovery thing his target. This is what he's about. He's about recovery. Somebody started calling him, I suspect it was him, started calling him the ambassador of recovery. I think he might have been the one that first started. But nevertheless, it's catching on. And so people are now referring to him, to my brother. So I will give you right now the ambassador of recovery, Richard, formerly Dollar Bill.
My name is Richard Beale, and I'm a very, 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 very grateful recovering addict. I want to say that first, only by God's grace, that he, helped me recover from the disease of addiction. That's centered in my thinking. I always say, anytime you think something on the outside is going to fix what's going on the inside, that thought is the problem. Anytime you think the money, the cars, the jewelry, the sex, the gambling, the food, the drugs, anytime you think something on the outside is going to fix what's going on the inside, that thought is the problem. So the disease of addiction is centered right here in my thinking. I always say this up here is unsafe territory. Do not go there without adult supervision. It has been declared by many as a weapon of mass destruction. I come from that era, y'all. My heroes was Huey P. Newton, H. Rap Brown, Eldridge Cleaver, Angela Davis. Those was my heroes. That's all coming up in the 70s, I seen all of that, and I grew up around that, and my father was an activist, and people that I knew was activists, and it was that time, and I just gravitated to that type of lifestyle. My father was in the movie The Mac. It came out in 1972. I know all of the guys that was in that movie. Some of us still talk. I knew Ted Ward, and I knew Frank Ward, and I knew some people that were in that movie that died. Well, Frank got killed during the movie. But anyway, I knew all of those people. Just last 2 months ago, I was at Philmo Slim's birthday party, because, I know Philmo Slim since I was 6 years old. I didn't have a job or do anything until I came into recovery, y'all. I came into recovery. All I knew was the game. And today I'm going to tell you, GAME stands for good advice means everything. Good advice means everything. So I got some good advice when I came into recovery. And the best thing that happened to me was I met people like Roland, people like David Lewis, people that were serious about changing their lives, that were familiar with the game, familiar where I came from, and was doing something about it and making a difference in their lives. They were role models. Some of them were entrepreneurs. People like Patrick Brock, and so those people were my role models, and I gravitated to them when I came into recovery. And the best model that helped the people that I was working with was the CENAPS model, relapse prevention. Because of the simplicity of it. So I was grateful that I went to a training in 2005. Dr. G, Dr. Greenstead, and Roland, and Terry came. He came to the training, but he didn't stay. Matter of fact, we was mad because he had to leave, and it was like people was getting disgruntled, and some people were saying, man, why is he leaving? But Dr. G and Roland, they did an excellent job with the rest of that training. And I learned a lot during that training, and I said, this is the model that I'm using. I've been using that model in various facilities and various residential programs for the next 20 years. And so to me, it's really simple. To me, it's about the core components and about the 9 steps. The 9 core components and the 9 steps. We're going to talk about that. But we need to be pretty interactive. I like being interactive. Y'all heard me say that I like Excerpt Brown, and I used to come to those rallies, and I come to the rallies in San Francisco when they're talking about drug-free housing, and we're talking about getting, more abstinence-based programs. I'm talking about, not cutting the funding for treatment centers, and I'm advocating with the board of supervisors. And when I come to those rallies, I bring my bullhorn. Just like I learned, I used to see back in the day with the Black Panthers and all that, right? And so I want y'all to do some call and response with me. This is going to be interactive. When I say recovery, y'all say works. Recovery. Works. Recovery. Works. Y'all got it. And so we're going to do that, y'all. We're going to do that. We're going to be interactive here. I got a couple of people, they already know we're going to do a little role play. But I want y'all to be energetic, because when I work with people coming out of the in-custody programs, and I work with people that are post-release, I understand that, they traumatized, they're going through a lot of things that has happened over the last either 1 year to 30 years. And it's a big difference. It is estimated that 70% of all criminal offenders have serious problems with alcohol and drugs. About 60% were under the influence when they committed their crimes. 54% of the people convicted of violent crimes were under the influence at the time of the crime. 25% stated they committed the crime to support their addiction. Who right here went to jail trying to chase their drugs? That's what I'm talking about, so y'all can identify. And that's what, I deal with, and I love working with the population. Everybody can't work with this population. I had supervisors come, and some of them didn't last a month. They would come and say, this man, I can't work with him. This guy was telling me about the things that he had did, and how he had pistol whipped this person, and how he had sexually assaulted this other person, and I couldn't take it. And, that transference, the counter-transference is heavy with this population, and that counter-transfer just runs, they walk right out the door and don't come back. Everybody can't do it. Some people can't work with 290s, sex offenders. Some people can't work with arsonists. Some people can't work with people that are really, really violent, that have been convicted of murder and did a lot of time in prison. So it takes a special person to work with this population, to be non-judgmental, to be empathetic, and understand, what I'm saying, that these are not bad people, that they made a bad decision, because 50 seconds can get you 50 years. My brother just got convicted, 33 years old. They gave him 60 years. His parole date is 2051. So he got 26 years before he even eligible for parole. My baby brother. You know, and he watched me. I've been clean. So in July, I'll be 30 years clean. You know, and so he's 33. So he seen me, you know, being clean, but he also seen me, you know, when I first got clean, and our father, when we was coming up, you know, struggling, you know, and being interactive with the game. You know, and so it is what it is. The work that I do today is so I won't have to see another person, you know, get sentenced that I know that I love for 50 years, for 60 years. So that's why I do the work that I do. Let's go back. So, course objectives: to equip professionals with a deep understanding of the CENAPS model and its applicability to justice-involved clients. Provide practical insights into implementing the relapse prevention strategies within in-custody treatment and post-release environments. Foster skills in tailoring CENAPS-based interventions to address the specific needs and circumstances of justice-involved individuals. Train participants to effectively use the CENAPS model in facilitating relapse prevention sessions for justice-involved clients. Enhance the ability of trainers to create and adapt relapse prevention programs within the context of in-custody treatment and post-release for justice-involved population. So currently right now, you heard Roland say some of the things that I do. You know, currently right now, I am the chair for the Direct Action Committee for the Reentry Council of the Adult Probation Department in City County in San Francisco. I created a program called New Horizon Transitional Housing Program. I got it funded by the City and County of San Francisco. It's been running for 10 years now. I opened up recently Leroy Looper graduate program, and it's going very well at 587 80th Street in San Francisco. And all of this is right there in the Tenderloin. And I'm talking about, you know, right now they're using the Tenderloin to me, and I'm just saying for the last 20 years, that's like a containment zone. A lot of people, when they get released, they get sent to a program that's in the Tenderloin. There's only so many. If you're coming out of parole, you probably get sent to 111 Taylor, which is GLD. You probably get sent to the option of going to the CAS, which is the Community Access Service Center, and you got to connect maybe to a transitional housing program, maybe. Maybe. There's no guarantee. The only people for parole is GO in San Francisco, that's it. And so I take a lot of people on parole, I take a lot of people on federal probation. I changed my contract from taking people that were just on supervision for probation to taking anybody that's justice involved. I pushed that, because at first they didn't want to do it. And so I got APD to fund the program for everybody that's justice involved. And so this whole thing to me it has been political for a long time. This whole thing, and so what I'm trying to do now, and it's been instrumental working with this population, is get them to recognize justice-involved clients as being a protected class. Such as, you know, like we do with race and gender and age. That's what I want to do. That's one of the goals. And guess what? It's being presented to the state. And so hopefully keep your fingers crossed that it'll pass. You know, another bill that's being presented is I want to look it up before I move on, is Bill 255, which is drug-free housing. You heard abstinence, you heard Roland talk about a lot of people in 2016, they came out with that harm reduction philosophy that if you didn't practice harm reduction and have harm reduction in your modality, you could not get funded by the state or the county. And so that came out in 2016. And then they said that a lot of faith-based programs and 12-step programs, because they did not have harm reduction, they would not accept people who were on methadone, that you could not get funded by the city and the county. And they said 12-step recovery was not evidence-based. I'm talking about the recovery that's been around since 1935 that has proven to have saved millions of lives. They said it was not evidence-based. But when I say recovery, y'all say works. Recovery? Works. Recovery? Works. All right. It is evidence-based. It is evidence-based. And so the CENAPS model, this model is so simple, it can be utilized in any modality. You know, I always said, and you heard what Roland was talking about, the abstinence-based modality, And I believe that you can practice harm reduction principles in the abstinence-based modality. You can. And the way you practice harm reduction principles in the abstinence-based modality is when you identify somebody that's struggling and you see that they have relapse, instead of because we used to just discharge people when they relapse. Back in the day, they was doing that attack therapy. We found out that didn't work, that we would traumatize the people. You heard Dr. G talk about that scared straight, that we put people in the hot seat and all that, and we blast them. And we found out that didn't work. And then we found out that when we discharged the people because they relapsed and didn't maintain a continuum of care, that the person that relapsed is the one that needs the most help. So why did you put down somebody there because they suffer from the disease of addiction? Just like the other person was talking about, that you can have any type of other disease. You can have cancer, you can have diabetes, you can have all that. You go to your job and stuff back in the day. But if you had an alcohol and drug problem and didn't tell nobody, and they seen that you had suffering from it, you could be terminated with cause. Just like that. Just like that. Things have changed. Things have changed. And so now, if you even suffer from, the disease of addiction as a staff person and a counselor, you can get some help and let people know that, and get some help and go back to work and all of those things. But when it talks about this CENAPS model and the Gorski core components and the 9 steps, look at these right here: self-regulation, integration, understanding, self-knowledge, coping skills, change awareness, support, and maintenance. Those are the core components of the CENAPS model. Self-regulation. Self-regulation. That means you need to come up with a plan. The first thing that you need to let your client know is that we need to come up with some type of program. We need to come up, because if you come out of in custody, especially if you did a lot of time, people who have done a lot of time, they know what time breakfast is. What time is breakfast? What time is breakfast? Y'all, when y'all was in, what time was breakfast?
5.
Huh?
4:30, 5.
4:30, 5 o'clock. But did nobody ever miss it? They got up. You know why? Because a lot of times at 4:30 and 5 o'clock, if you miss breakfast, guess what? You miss lunch too. Because you got that bag, when you do the breakfast, you get the bag lunch too. So you're getting up at 5 o'clock. So my point is that people that have done a lot of time in prison and people that have done a lot of time in jail, they are disciplined. So they need to maintain that type of discipline when they come into the program. When they come into the program, I like working with people that have done time because they listen well. Because they have to pay attention. When they say stuff on the yard and when they say stuff, you have to be able to listen. Because you don't want to get no 115s, you don't want to get written up, you don't want to go through a lot of consequences because you didn't hear, you didn't know. And so you got to be able to listen, you got to be able to pay attention. And people that have done a lot of time, they are well disciplined. A lot of people that when they come out of prison and have done a lot of time, they have more clean time than some of the counselors that are in recovery. I'm talking about some of these guys, after 5 or 10 years, they stopped using, they ain't been using in prison because they knew it wasn't conducive for their recovery. They wanted to make sure they could pay attention, do some programs and everything that was in the prison. And they stopped using. And so they might come out, they might have 25 years of recovery in prison. And that time counts. That time counts. So I love working with people who are, come out and disciplined and willing, but then we got some of the other people that that don't practice discipline, that are, have lack of control. And so we got to learn how to work with everybody across the board. And so self-regulation, integration, you got to be able to be integrated again into society. And so I want to move on for this because the big part of this right here, I just want y'all to understand the 9 core principles and the 9 core components, because we're going to talk about each one of these. The 9 steps: stabilization, getting them stabilized, doing the assessment, relapse education, warning sign identification, warning sign management, recovery planning, inventory training, involvement of significant others, and maintenance. Those are the 9 steps when it comes to those 9 steps of the CENAPS model. So you got the core components and you got the 9 steps. real simple. It can be applied in any modality. But this is the part really where is the meat and potatoes of it, is dealing with this. So that right there is the in-custody program, just a picture of it. Look at this right here. So the advantage of being an in-custody program, what is the advantage? The CENAPS model provides a step-by-step framework that is evidence-based and highly structured, making it well-suited for an institutional setting. And so when you're talking about those core components, when you're talking about those 9 steps, and you in a controlled environment, that's the advantage. That's the advantage of being able to implement the CENAPS model. And so you got what they call, you got people in a controlled environment. They're going to listen to you. They want to be out of the cell. They're interacting in the circle with the counselor, with the facilitator, and they got some peers around them that, accountability partners as well that we talked about. It addresses criminal and addictive thinking. The CENAPS model does that. Tailored to control denial patterns. Y'all heard about the denial management yesterday with Dr. G. And Leo, who did an excellent job. Criminal thinking, addictive behaviors, key issues in justice-involved populations. And so it's different issues when it comes to being justice-involved. When you're in jail and when you're in prison, it's a little different to being in jail and being in prison. When you're in jail, you got a certain amount of people that you can connect with. You might connect with the Pinochle crew or the Domino crew or certain areas that you know and stuff like that. But it's different when you connect in prison because they got different type of connections and relationships in prison. We're going to talk about that as well. And so the CENAPS model addresses all of that. It talks about the addictive thinking pattern as opposed to somebody who was in jail for a long time and somebody who was in jail for a short time. And so the issues of a person who was in custody, who went to jail for 6 months. I don't know about y'all. When I went to jail, Roland, I lost everything. It didn't take long. In 6 months, the girl was gone, the car was gone, the job was gone. Can y'all identify to that? Can y'all identify with that? Going to Santa Rita, going to, all the ones that, that surround here as far as Contra Costa County. I went to jail in Alameda County and all of those different places. And so after 6 months, everything is gone. But the issues of somebody who has been in prison for years is a lot different. A lot of times after being in years that you've incarcerated, you develop, some social anxiety. You have to learn again how to get reintegrated with society. And so it's a big difference as opposed to some of your family. A lot of people probably have died off. Those connections, those relationships that you had, are gone, and it's traumatizing. And so you got different issues of somebody who has been incarcerated for a long period of time as opposed to somebody who's incarcerated a short period of time. So the CENAPS model promotes self-awareness and develops coping skills. And one of the things that the CENAPS model do is shows you how to recognize yourself and see yourself coming. And so in my program, we do room checks, we do wellness checks, we do all of that. I'm sure that some of y'all do that as well. But when you go into somebody's room and you see somebody that has, they usually are really, really good when it comes to, making their bed and washing their dishes and doing everything and keeping themselves in order. And then you go in 2 weeks later and you look at the sink, it's dishes in the sink, it's dirty clothes in the corner, got a smell in the room, and something is going on with this client. Something is going on with this client. So you got to be able to identify what's going on with the client when you walk into their environment. And so a lot of times when you see those warning signs, how do you respond to the warning sign? So a lot of times it's not what the client is not doing, also is what the counselor won't do. If you just look at those signs and you don't do anything about it, that just ain't on the client, that's on you as well. Because when you see those warning signs and you don't sit the client down and you say, I see some warning signs, hey man, we did a room check and you had some things going on, your beard, what's going on with you? Be able to identify the warning signs yourself and bring it to the attention of the client, whatever that may be. If they stop going to groups, if they stop going to see their therapist, if they stop going to their anger management, their domestic violence, whatever, they stop seeing their family. They stop missing appointments, seeing their kids. All of those are warning signs that cannot be ignored. Encourage emotional regulation. Focuses on managing post-acute withdrawal, negative emotions, and stress. Skills essential for stability during and after incarceration. And so a lot of people, when they get incarcerated, they suffer from, like I said, those anxiety and social, and being antisocial, and a lot of them are still angry, and they have a big resentment against authority. They don't want you telling them what to do. What you mean I need to be at that meeting at 9 o'clock? What you mean? It's like, they start questioning, challenging authority. That's what they do. So you got to be able to roll with the resistance. You got to be able to let them know that, this program is designed to help you to another level, to help you develop some coping skills and some tools, so when you go out there, you'll be able to interact with society. You'll be able to interact with the job interviewer. You'll be able to interact with the person when you're being interviewed for housing. And I'm going to make a point here when I talk about, the emotions and the feelings. Find out and work and let the client know that they need to identify when they are their best self. In other words, if they got a job interview or something coming up, and they know they're a morning person, they need to say, okay, you need to make that interview at 10 o'clock. Because that's when you're your best self. Because I'm going to tell y'all, at the 3 or 4 o'clock right about now, I was trying to get it rolling to give me an earlier presentation, because I'm energized in the morning. I'm a morning person. I pop up in the morning. I'm good. Somebody called me. I'm point. And when you got a person that is very difficult to work with, and you know that they're going to be challenging, don't schedule that person in 2 o'clock when you want to rush them out the door. No, you schedule. You want to schedule that person when you are your best self. Not just them, but you too. And people make that mistake all the time. Counselors make that mistake all the time. They know that you got this person that got multiple issues, multiple things going on with them, and you're getting ready to get off at 4 o'clock, and you schedule him for 3 o'clock. What type of system that made? And so we got to realize that, some of the things that we are doing are not correct as well. So schedule those most difficult clients when you're your best self. So that's why I let my staff know. Identify when you're at your strength. Identify what your strengths are. Don't try to teach a class that you don't really understand. I teach my people relapse prevention. I do trainings with TAC. I had Roland come and do a training for TAC. I had people that are familiar with the CENAPS model come and work with some of my staff so they can understand how to identify triggers, how to identify warning signs, how to work with clients coming out of reentry and incarceration, how to help people who have been locked up for years develop resumes, go down there, how to get their ID, how to get their birth certificate, how to get a social security card, what you need to, all of those things that are put on the checklist. There is no small achievement. If I tell someone, we put on the service plan that, that you need to go down there and get a library card. And then I tell them when they go down there, do you know that you can go down there? We did Read to Recovery at San Francisco Public Library as a result of a reentry program. And so every book at the San Francisco Library that is a recovery book in that section, they can take it for free. AANAGA, all of that. We came over there and we did a rally and all of that, and we got the board of supervisors, the fund project, Read to Recovery, and now the programs can go over there, the clients can go over there and get a free NA book, a free AA book, they can get a CA book, whatever they need. And so I believe in taking action when it comes to doing some of these things. And so when it comes to working with people that are coming out of incarceration, they don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. When they see me down there, they see me on TV and they see me advocating for them, they know I care. At the same level and the same energy that I have when I'm on the steps of City Hall, I got the same energy when I'm in a room with 15 people and I'm talking about relapse prevention. And the reason they call me the ambassador is because we did an overdose prevention summit, and I was able to work with the people of harm reduction and people that believe in abstinence-based at the same time. Because I believe in being professional at all times, and I believe that we all own the same thing, that we all, and that one modality should not suffer at the expense of the other. I'm going to say that again. One modality should not suffer at the expense of the other. We got some of the same goals and objectives. We're trying to save lives. So whether you harm reduction, whether you abstinence-based, we need to learn how to work together to help the client. And that's why we did the Overdose Prevention Summit. That's why I was the moderator. That's why I helped set up the panel. And that's why I utilized the CENAPS model, because it's the best one that works for not only justice involved, but also people of color. And so it's just a wonderful model. Prepares for reentry, equips individuals with tools for community reintegration and relapse prevention planning prior to release. And so when you're in that setting, the first thing I let people know, when I ran a program in San Bruno called Roads to Recovery. On Roland's 25th anniversary, he came and presented at the program. I was running. He came on June, that was your 25th anniversary when he made 20, he got 39 now, so that was 15 years ago. You know what I'm saying? On his anniversary, he came and did a presentation on relapse prevention and everything in San Bruno Jail, Roads to Recovery, APOD program. I still go in there and speak to them people. I still go in there and speak to those clients and let them know that when you leave here, you need to come and see me. When you leave here, you need to make a decision to come directly to me. Now, it's really different when people coming from prison. I did the same thing in San Quentin. And I'm gonna tell you that some of the discharge planning when it comes to people coming out of long-term incarceration is terrible. I'm talking about they still dropping off people, just giving them $200 and say, you know, you're supposed to show up here tomorrow morning. That's it. That's the discharge plan. That's it. Just let somebody go, put them on the bus, give them all their stuff that they done been locked up for a number, and then you show up and, you know, get out of Richmond and go here, go whatever you want to go to. Here's $200, and then show up at this address in the morning. Most of the time, people don't even show up. I hold bids for people all the time. They get out of prison, and I reserve the bid and everything. I be trying to arrange some type of transportation. But it was only a couple of counties that have what we call a bridge reentry program. Those are the ones that are really serious about helping people coming out of incarceration. And all the counties need to do that. And what that program is that for 1 year, they're teaching people how to get reintegrated back into society for 1 year in that block. That's what they do. They teaching people how, skills and relapse prevention, anger management, all of those things are going on there. And then for another year, it's a bridge from the people that come out, and for another year, they follow up with them. They make sure that when they leave that facility, that somebody picks them up, meet them there, bring them to another facility, set up their treatment plan, set up their recovery plan, set up their reentry plan, and they follow up with them for another year. My program, we provide free housing for a whole year. I got a savings program that I designed for people coming out of reentry. Anything from $500 on that, just up to $500, you save 10%. $500 to $1,000, 20%. $1,000 on up, 30%. And the purpose of that is so they learn how to save money. You heard what I said, up to $0 to $500. Even if you own GA, save 10%. It's not it's not based on really on how much the money, it's the discipline when it comes to budgeting your money and learning how to understand that you need to save something out of everything that you get. I got the 30% from, in early recovery, they told me you need to save 30% of whatever your income is. And so those type of things have been instrumental in helping people coming out of incarceration, teaching them how to budget their money because they didn't know how to do that. You got to teach all of those things. Moving on, supports peer connection and recovery identity. Group formal fosters peer support, accountability, and reinforces the recovery identity while in custody. Let me say this. I heard Anthony talk, and I know that my brother, Kenneth Love, is getting ready to come up, and we talk about faith-based recovery and everything. How many people are familiar with 12-step recovery? Wonderful, wonderful. And 12-step work for you, right? That's wonderful that 12-step work, but 12-step recovery don't work for everybody. And I'm grateful if you're not familiar with other ways of people to recover, you need to. You need to become familiar with other modalities, other support groups. And some of them are smart recovery, which is science-based, utilizes cognitive behavioral tools to manage addiction and behaviors. Life Rings circular recovery, peer-led, abstinence-based, encourages building personal recovery plans without a higher power. Women for Sobriety, focus on emotional growth and self-esteem for women only, circular and empowerment-based. Circular Organizations for Sobriety, SOS, emphasizes personal responsibility without reliance on spiritual or religious elements. Recovery Dharma. Now, I know some of y'all done heard of some of these different support groups and organizations, right? But if you hear and you're not familiar with those, and you're not familiar with those groups, you need to get familiar with them. You need to be able to offer your clients options if they say that, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Christ. I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that. They got some deep core trauma around, they might have been raped by, the Catholic priest or whatever. They might have some issues when they walk, because they tried to baptize me. I ran the church to the dope house. They put enough oil on my forehead to fried chicken. None of that worked for me. I'm a little more unorthodox, y'all. And when I came, I still had that mentality, y'all, that these guys, I was young when I got here, and so I had to learn to identify with the young people that came in. I had to learn how to identify with the older people as well. And I had to let them know that, who my father was, who I was. Well, I wasn't like just, ask somebody who I was out there. Some people say, yeah, I remember, back when. But I let them know that, I had to bring dollar bill into recovery. And whoever you is, they can recover too. I said, we deal with people that got different personality disorders, and some people got dual personality disorders. I said, keep coming back. Both of y'all can recover. And let people know that no matter what y'all going through, that recovery is possible. When I say recovery, y'all say it works. Recovery! Work. Recovery! Work. And let them know it don't matter where you came from Park Avenue or Park Bench, that you can recover. That whether you came from the prison or you came from the jail cell, you can recover. And if you got out of jail and they gave you that sack, call that fool up and give that sack back. I used to do all kinds of things. I would get up there and we'd do poetry. I had the clients write rhymes and stuff, the ones that would say they was rappers and stuff like that. I had people doing art therapy and all that kind of stuff, because people who were incarcerated, they love to do art, and some of them, they do those tattoos in jail. And so some of them were very skilled. We took that art and we put them up in City Hall. And some of that artwork is in San Francisco City Hall right now. And I ain't talking about, and then we took some of the people that did a lot of time in jail, and then we took them over to City Hall, introduced them to the mayor, and put them up on the wall of change. And some of those pictures are up there right now. And and so I just truly believe in doing some action with people and letting them know that you can be, if you don't see the change, be the change. If you don't see the change, be the change. And you got transferable skills. If you was out there and you can run a game, you can run an organization, you can be an entrepreneur. If you can sell dope, you can sell a car. And so I let people know that you got transferable skills. I didn't think that I could do it. I never had a job. All I knew how to do was serve 50 cent George, $5 matchbox, to 3-finger lids. I love me some crack, some heroin, and some wild Irish rose. You know? Huh? Kid, and I'm telling you, and so I work with these people, and I tell them that, you know what, recognize what your warnings are, recognize what your triggers are. You know, I had to realize that some people, they look, and the trigger is, you know, they look at people who they used to always run with, and I said, look through your phone and look how the people that you need to delete out of your phone. Like, you heard what Anthony was talking about. You know what I'm saying? Put a message on your phone. You know what? I'm making some changes in my life. And if you don't have my new number, you one of those changes. You know, all that, come on, you know, some people you just gotta let them go, Anthony. Some people just need to go. Them keyboard gangsters and everything, them haters. You know what I'm saying? I used to tell them, and they try to come at me, man, why is you talking about harm reduction? Why is you trying to make us lose our jobs? I told them, y'all need to stop giving out the pipes and the Brillo and the foil on the street. All that, you know, smoking paraphernalia, and they start enabling people, and people were dying, and now, once again, the overdose deaths are going back up again. Because they still practicing the wrong thing, and they still giving out doping. I'm glad they didn't give me a pipe, a bubble pipe, when I was out there. I smoked out of an antenna. You know, and so, I'm just saying. And I know that people's jobs, hey, can I be real with y'all? I told you I'm real. I'm on the streets of the Tenderloin doing this with people every day. And they one hit away, one drink away from dying. I'm talking about, I'm taking people right out of incarceration, and I'm taking people who have lost their loved ones, suffering, and I just 2 weeks ago, there was a guy, his son is caught up in the game. And I seen him rack a gun outside on the street. And I had to call the police to search his unit. He got caught, he had a Glock 17 with 2 clips. And he was about to make a decision to go out there, be out there with his son. You know, and I think that was the intervention that I had to do. That was the intervention that I had to use at that time. And guess what? He called me. He sent a message back to me through the public defender saying thank you. He came to my office before, after that happened, and was crying in my office telling me about his son. He didn't know that I seen the video. He didn't know that. He didn't know that I was just waiting for the police to come. He didn't know that, but really, I didn't, you know, it wasn't something that happened to him, it was something that happened for him. And a lot of times, you know, I let my staff know that sometimes, you know, you're going to have to call the police. Sometimes you're going to have to do different types of interventions with people. It depends on what the intervention, but let the intervention be appropriate. Sometimes you need, instead of calling 911, you need to call 988. Which is mobile crisis, and they can come and deal with people that are having, you know, a psychiatric issue. I didn't call the appropriate person for the appropriate cause of somebody going through crisis. And so, like I said, I had 2 supervisors just walk away because they couldn't. They say, I always say that I'm in the rubble, and I don't know. Y'all might not know where I work at. I work in the Tenderloin. You know what I'm saying? I work right there across the street from Bodecker Park. I work right there in the belly of the beast. But I tell people all the time, I'm the rumble in the jungle in the belly of the beast. I'm the ambassador. If you want some recovery, you come see me. And I don't care what you did or what's about what you're going to do. What you want the next 5 years to look like, the last 5? If you want to make some changes, come and see me. They call me the ambassador. I'm going to help you regardless. You're a 290, guess what? I still help you. You're an arsonist, guess what? I still help you. What barriers do you have in eligibility? Your willingness to participate. There is no exclusion in my program. I take everybody. And I work with them. And some of my staff that can't work with that population, they work directly with me. That's why they call me the ambassador. Because I cross all bridges. And the best thing that has helped me work with the clients is the CENAPS model. So it reduces institutional infractions and involvement in structured recovery programming may create correlate with reduced behavioral issues and disciplinary actions, accessible to mental health bridge. It functions as a bridge to mental health, a substance use disorder, treatment post-release when implemented with continuity and planning. That's the advantage of working with the CENAPS model. Is that, like I said, it's just so simple. The transition, the stabilization, the core components, the steps, it's so simple. Post-release options for clients with substance use challenges. Transitional recovery housing, placement in clean and sober housing. And so it's a transition, y'all, going on. And we talked about transition as part of the developmental model. I'm gonna talk about a little about the developmental model. But, you know, when it comes to post-release and transition recovery housing, that's what APD came to me. Adult Probation Department, San Francisco came to me and said, Richard, we got some clients, you know, we having problems placing people in housing and sending people through the access service system is not working. We need a transitional housing program where we can place our clients. I said, not a problem. They said, can you do the scope? Can you write the program? Yes, I can. I have it in 6 months. I developed the program. I put it in 3 phases. I got some suggestions from my sponsor and some other people who I talked to and who I see open up programs, who I see be successful working with this population, utilizing the CENAPS model and having a successful rate, because it was one of the performance measurements was 40% of the people had to be transitioned to stable and permanent housing and receive employment and increase their income. And I worked and did some of those things with those clients within the first year. The first year of the program, I did every intake personally for the first year of the program. Of people coming, you know, from incarceration on adult supervision at that time. I did every intake. They gave us the whole building in 60 units. The first day it opened up on 2015, on October the 5th. I did 30 intakes. Me and my staff, and I was right there to sign off on every one of them. And then every person that came in, I personally did the intake for every person that came in that first year. I wanted to make sure that they understood what the program was about. I want them to understand that they had an opportunity to change their lives and get an opportunity to get a job and get some housing and save your money, and what the program was about, what the phases of the program was about. Make sure that when you bring somebody into the program that you connect and build a rapport. That you connect with that person no matter where they came from, no matter what religion they are, no matter what their sexual orientation is. I got sponsees and people that I mentor and coach that are gay, that we call, I respect them as being them, it doesn't matter. It's about me. That's why they call me the ambassador. And I'm grateful that God has put me on this mission. I'm grateful that the God of my understanding put me on this mission. And the people that have an issue with God, they understand me too. You know, they understand me too. You know, because I showed them that empathy. I showed them that empathy. Recovery-oriented reentry navigation. When I bring them into the program, I make sure that they get connected to a case manager that understands the biopsychosocial disease of addiction.